Hello, everybody. This is Thrills and Gills back at you with the first video coming back to our old formula. Today, we're going to tackle one of my personal favorite fish, the brown knifefish. So, I've dealt with a lot of knifefish in my 7 years now of working with freshwater fish, and if I had any two words to describe a knifefish, it would be fragile and sensitive. But if you can get past these two things, they're a great fish to have. Today we're going to be talking just about the more common brown ghost knifefish, not to be confused with the black ghost knifefish. We'll get into the details of what makes them different, because there are some big factors. But first, let's do some quick little stats on the brown knifefish. So, to begin, the brown knifefish is part of, well, the knifefish family, which includes knifefish, elephantfish, baby whalefish, and the oh-so-famous electric eel. So, some defining features if you're trying to find a knifefish: they have an eel-esque body, they have no present dorsal fin, and the bottom of their body consists of one extremely long anal fin that goes from the head all the way to the back of the tail. And they do indeed have a tail. It's very small and paddle-shaped. Knifefish can range in color from brown to black to striped to transparent, and sometimes even a more tigery bold striped, but this is fairly uncommon. Some knifefish can reach up to 15 inches long, but the one we're working with today only reaches about 10 inches. When ranking them on the hardiness scale, I'd put them at a 2. They're not that great at being hardy. They require very, very pristine water, and they need very low stress levels. They cannot take a beating. Other cool features about the knifefish: despite the knifefish's terrible eyesight and somewhat terrible sense of direction, the knifefish has a sixth sense. It has an electromagnetic sense, which is the same as what sharks have, which means they basically can sense you without having to hear, taste, smell, or see, which is terrifying. It's like a spidey sense, but for fish. This is what the knifefish usually uses to traverse and communicate with its own species. Knifefish are able to be put in groups. Sometimes it's best not to keep them together, depending on the species. But when it comes to the brown ghost knifefish, they are compatible with their own species, and to my knowledge, they do not have any form of interspecial combat. Now, the difficulty is putting them with other fish. Other fish tend to do one of two things. Either they straight up beat the crap out of them because they're very fragile and they can't fight back, or they outcompete them food-wise because the knifefish is a very shy and very timid fish. If you're going to keep other fish with the knifefish, you should keep calm and peaceful fish that are slow-moving and aren't going to try to outcompete your knifefish. If you're going to have something like a brown ghost knife, it's best to also keep your bottom feeders limited to things like Plecostomus. It is possible to keep them with some more rambunctious bottom feeders if you know the right ones to put them with. Good options can be Cory catfish, Farewella twig catfish, banjo catfish. As I already said, Plecostomus, Otocinclus, generally fish that aren't very competitive. This fish is a bottom to mid-water fish. It is active mainly at night, however, they can become more social in the daytime if they feel safe enough, which can be a very difficult and long trek. Other things to note about getting your new knife fish: if you're going to get a knife fish, you should probably make it one of the first fish you get, as this way you can work on keeping its water pristine, and since it's going to be more acclimated to the tank, you can work around it instead of having to work all of your other fish around it. Fish that are not good tank mates: silver dollars, aggressive cichlids, fast-moving fish like danios, smaller fish like tetras, like ember tetras, and neons and cardinals are not good options because the knife fish is still a predator and may take these as an opportunity for food. Good mid-water fish for them can be, depending, not always, but sometimes, angels, severums. But the best fish usually are fish that are very non-picky with other fish. So very, very calm fish. Guppies, mollies, platies, things that are generally just not going to try to bother the knife fish. You should have little to no concern about your knife fish trying to attack your fish unless they're able to be swallowed, and once it hits that 14-inch range, that may be possible with smaller fish, but luckily the knife fish has a very, very small mouth. Which takes us to our next thing: feeding the brown knife fish. At first, your knife fish may not eat anything. They tend to have the big issue of being very, very, very shy at feeding time. And the best way to do work around this is just feed them at night when everyone else is inactive. At first, it can be quite a bit of a pain, but as time goes on and they become more active, you should be able to feed them with everybody else. If your knife fish is not willing to come out, good options are to get a long eyedropper. I even use a turkey baster for it sometimes when I first had mine. And things such as tubifex worms, brine shrimp, bloodworms, mysis shrimp, all wonderful options. They might accept pellet food, but I wouldn't chance it. Due to how picky they can usually be, it's best to use fresh food, so best not to try anything that's dried out. Are there any issues that they can have? Yes, quite a few actually. Biggest issues: shock. A lot of the time, if they're not acclimated properly, they can go into shock very easily. Acclimation for them should be way more than the recommended 30 minutes, just because they are so susceptible to it. And take it from a person who has unfortunately lost a couple because of this. it's best to take at least an hour to slowly acclimate it to the water. A good tank setup for a knifefish is a tank of at least 40 gallons, well planted, with lots of driftwood for it to swim around in. I prefer a sandy substrate for them instead of a rock substrate. This is only because sometimes the knifefish isn't the most graceful fish and can sometimes be a little clumsy, and due to mainly being scaleless, it can very easily tear itself up on sharp and jagged rocks. This is also why plastic plants are probably not a good option either. Is it easy to find a brown ghost knifefish? I'd say it's an intermediate fish to find. If you go to a person or a shop that specializes in fish, you'll have a pretty high chance of finding them. If the fish, though, it's very, very easy to mix it up with a black ghost knifefish, which I will go over in another video. But for now, we're just going with the brown ghost. And for a quick little guide, the brown ghost knifefish has a longer nose, is a chocolate brown, opposed to its cousin that is solid black, and has a stubby nose. And the brown ghost knifefish also, sometimes, but not always, can have this whitish line, which I figured out black ghost knifefish actually have more often, so it is possible for both to have it, but the brown ghost actually has it less often, so you can work on that too. They're also a lot thinner. And then, finally, where do I rank this fish? Do I think you should get it as a pet? If you're just starting out, I'd say no, but if you have quite a bit of experience, especially with more iffy and fragile fish, I'd say this is a fun fish to have. They're quite inquisitive, and they're very odd looking whenever they swim. Fun little fact, they're the only fish that can swim backwards with literally no problems. It's weird, it's like watching a car back up. Until then, that's all for today, and I'll see you on the high tide.